Hello and welcome to the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst CySA Plus Certification Study Guide. In this video, we will discuss Chapter 3, Key Terms and Introduction. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Summary. In cybersecurity, a threat actor, also called a malicious actor, is a term used to describe individuals or entities who are responsible for attacks. The generic term attacker is also used. The attributes of the different groups of threat actors vary widely. While some groups have a high level of knowledge and skills along with a massive network of resources and funding, others have minimal skills and no resources. Individuals who want to perform attacks yet lack the technical knowledge to conduct these attacks are sometimes called script kiddies. Script kiddies use automated tools to conduct their attacks, and they can often be successful in penetrating defenses. Organized crime is a close-knit group of highly centralized enterprises set up for the purpose of engaging in illegal activities. Organized crime has moved into cyber attacks, which they consider to be less risky and more rewarding than traditional crimes. Their motivation is financial gain. Another serious threat to an enterprise comes from its own employees, contractors, and business partners, called insiders. These individuals have the distinct advantage of attacking from the position of a trusted source. Intentional insiders steal protected secrets or manipulate data, and they have several motivations. Although there may be no malicious intent due to their actions or inactions, unintentional insiders can unwittingly cause harm or create a vulnerability for an external threat actor to exploit. The process of bypassing corporate approval for technology purchases is known as shadow IT, and employees who engage in such conduct are considered unintentional insiders. A group that is strongly motivated by philosophical or political beliefs or ideology for the sake of their principles is hacktivists. Instead of using an army to march across the battlefield to strike an adversary, governments are increasingly employing their own state-sponsored attackers for launching cyber attacks against their foes. These are known as nation-state actors. There are two types of attacks that are often attributed to nation-state actors: advanced persistent threats and supply chain attacks. There are other categories of threat actors, such as competitors, brokers, and cyber terrorists. Tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTP, describe the behavior or actions of a threat actor in a cascading sequence. TTPs describe what threat actors do and how they will do it. These can define instances including the targets of the attack, such as the human resources representatives of finance companies, the attack patterns, and the details of the attack. Cybersecurity professionals use the Johari window as a means of classifying cybersecurity threats, particularly known threats or unknown threats, or classifying threats comparing the knowledge of the threat actor to security personnel. There are a variety of different types of attacks that come from threat actors. A web application infrastructure is a tempting target for attackers for multiple reasons. Common web server application attack categories are request forgery and cross-site scripting attacks. A request forgery attack is a request that has been fabricated. There are two types of request forgeries. A cross-site request forgery, CSRF, takes advantage of an authentication token that a website sends to a user's web browser. If a user is currently authenticated on a website and is then tricked into loading another web page, the new page inherits the identity and privileges of the victim, who may then perform an undesired function on the attacker's behalf. A server-side request forgery, SSRF, takes advantage of a trusting relationship between web servers. SSRF attacks exploit how a web server processes external information received from another server. Threat actors can take advantage of user input and display on a web browser to launch a cross-site scripting (XSS) attack. XSS is a client-side code injection attack using a web application. There are three main types of XSS attacks: reflected XSS, persistent XSS, and document object model XSS. A threat actor who controls a script that is executed in the victim's browser through XSS could fully compromise that user. A directory traversal attack takes advantage of a vulnerability so that a user can move from the root directory to other restricted directories, viewing confidential files or entering commands to execute on the web server. Remote code execution, RCE, occurs when a threat actor accesses a target device to make changes to it. Once threat actors have remotely accessed a device, the next step is typically to attempt a privilege escalation. Privilege escalation allows the attacker to gain illicit access to elevated rights or privileges beyond what is entitled for the user. Threat actors use data poisoning to contaminate the data that is used in cybersecurity to identify an attack. An attacker could slowly introduce their own fake data points seen as permissible activity in order to decrease the accuracy of a system. Not all attacks rely on technology vulnerabilities. Social engineering is a means of eliciting information or convincing a user to take action that weakens security. An attack using obfuscated links crafts deceptive uniform resource locators, URLs, to trick the user into thinking they are valid or secure links. There are several techniques for hiding URLs in a web browser so that an unsuspecting user does not know where a URL will actually redirect them. Threat actors often use more advanced techniques to obfuscate URLs. Attacks by threat actors are possible because of vulnerabilities that they exploit. Some vulnerabilities are the result of simply failing to properly configure the security protections that are available in hardware and software, security misconfigurations, while other vulnerabilities are more complex. There are many vulnerabilities that can be traced back to poor programming practices. A local file inclusion (LFI) vulnerability allows an attacker to point away from an approved file on the web server to the attacker's own file that has been uploaded to that server. A remote file inclusion (RFI) vulnerability allows the threat actor to access a file stored on a different server other than the server running the code. Several attacks are directed at vulnerabilities associated with how a program uses random access memory (RAM), and are often the result of poor techniques used by the software developer. A buffer overflow attack occurs when a process attempts to store data in RAM beyond the boundaries of a fixed-length storage buffer. This extra data overflows into the adjacent memory locations. Because the storage buffer typically contains the return address, an attacker can overflow the buffer with a new address pointing to the attacker's malware code. Because buffers are found in both the stack and heap areas, a buffer overflow attack can occur in either the stack, a stack overflow, or the heap, a heap overflow. In an integer overflow attack, an attacker changes the value of a variable to something outside the range that the programmer had intended by using an integer overflow. Programming vulnerabilities are not always the result of poor coding practices. They are often the result of a poor design of the program's logic and implementation that does not properly take into account cybersecurity protections. This is known as insecure design. Broken access control is a vulnerability that allows unauthorized users to access sensitive data or systems by circumventing security procedures. This typically occurs when authentication and authorization controls are not properly implemented or enforced, allowing attackers to gain illegitimate elevated privileges. The improper implementation of cryptography can severely weaken it and is known as a cryptographic failure. New hardware and software are introduced regularly that contain both new features as well as stronger security. The older features that are then considered as no longer current and are eventually no longer supported are called end-of-life components. In a downgrade attack, an attacker leverages dated components. Failing to confirm the requester's identity or the requester's genuineness is identification and authentication failure. On to question 1. Which of the following is not an accepted term to describe those who are responsible for cyber attacks? A. Malicious actor, B. Hacker, C. Attacker, D. Threat actor, answer B. Hacker. Explanation. In the past, the term hacker referred to a person who used advanced computer skills to attack computers. Yet this term was not always accurate, so it was then qualified in an attempt to distinguish between different types of hackers. For example, a white hat hacker, also known as an ethical attacker, would probe a system for weaknesses and then provide that information back to the organization. However, today hacker is considered pejorative and instead more accurate terms should be used. 1. Which of the following is not a target of financial cybercrime? A. Nonprofit organizations. B. Governments. C. Individual users. D. Enterprises. Answer. A. Nonprofit organizations. Explanation. Financial cybercrime can be divided into 3 categories based on different targets. Those targets are individual users, enterprises, and governments. 2. Which of the following is the least skilled category of attacker? A. Competitors. B. Organized crime. C. Script kiddies. D. brokers. Answer, C. Script kiddies. Explanation. Individuals who want to perform attacks yet lack the technical knowledge to carry out these attacks are sometimes called script kiddies or unskilled attackers. 3. What are the reasons that organized crime performs cyber attacks? A. It is less risky and more rewarding than traditional crimes. B. The avenues for the types of crimes committed previously are no longer available. C. Performing cyber attacks is a means of showing off their capabilities. D. The punishment for cyber attacks is less than that for traditional crimes. Answer: A. It is less risky and more rewarding than traditional crimes. Explanation. Organized crime has moved into cyber attacks because of the high financial gain and low risk. 4. Which of the following is not true about unintentional insiders? A. Carelessness, too much multitasking, and low situational awareness are all reasons for the actions of unintentional insiders. B. Careless employees or contractors are rarely the cause of most insider incidents. C. Many unintentional insiders have a general disinterest in practicing strong cyber defense. D. Unintentional insiders can unwittingly cause harm or create a vulnerability for an external threat actor to then exploit. Answer: B. Careless employees or contractors are rarely the cause of most insider incidents. Explanation. Almost 2 out of every 3 organizations found that a careless employee or contractor was the root cause of most insider incidents. 5. Elodie decided to purchase with her own money a new wireless router that she then installed in the company break room. What category does her actions fall under? A. Shadow it. B. Express expenditure. C. Corporate circumvention. D. Exploitive actions. Answer: A. Shadow it. Explanation. The process of bypassing corporate approval for technology purchases is known as shadow IT. 6. Which of the following is not a characteristic of hacktivists? A. Hacktivists are strongly motivated by philosophical or political beliefs or ideology for the sake of their principles. B. Most hacktivists are proud to call themselves hacktivists. C. Attacks by hacktivists are often used to make a statement. D. Today, many hacktivists work through disinformation campaigns by spreading fake news and supporting conspiracy theories. Answer: B. Most hacktivists are proud to call themselves hacktivists. Explanation. Most hacktivists do not explicitly call themselves hacktivists, but the term is commonly used by security researchers and journalists to distinguish them from other types of threat actors. 7. Who are the financiers that support nation-state actors? A. Cyber zealots. B. Hacktivists. C. Organized crime. D. Governments. Answer: D. Governments. Explanation. Governments are increasingly employing their own state-sponsored attackers for launching cyber attacks against their foes. These are known as nation-state actors. Their foes may be foreign governments or even citizens of its own nation that are considered hostile or threatening. 8. What is the class of attacks that are multi-year intrusion campaigns targeting highly sensitive economic, proprietary, or national security information? A. RCE. B. AP. C. RCR. D. ABA. Answer: B. Apt. Explanation. Nation-state actors are often involved in multi-year intrusion campaigns targeting highly sensitive economic, proprietary, or national security information. This has created a new class of attacks called Advanced Persistent Threat, APT. These attacks use innovative attack tools, advanced, and once a system is infected, it silently extracts data over an extended period of time, persistent. APTs are most commonly associated with nation-state actors. 9. Why are supply chain attacks difficult to defend against? A. Because supply chains are global in scope, each link in the chain is thousands of miles away overseas and is not under any direct and coordinated supervision and monitoring. B. Attackers can hide their exploits through firmware patches. C. Supply chain attacks only impact hardware that is difficult to trace. D. Supply chains themselves are hidden networks. Answer: A. Because supply chains are global in scope, each link in the chain is thousands of miles away overseas and is not under any direct and coordinated supervision and monitoring. Let's move on to question 11. Which software supply chain target infection is considered particularly alarming today? A. Corporate database software. B. Open source software. C. OS software. D. Network software. Answer: B. Open source software. Explanation. A particularly alarming type of software supply chain infection targets open source software, which is software for which the source code is available for anyone to freely use without restrictions. Open source software is usually supported by volunteer contributors, and rarely are the contributions vetted. This makes for an ideal situation for threat actors to add their malicious code to an open source project, which is then downloaded and installed by many unsuspecting victims. 1. Which threat actors sell their knowledge of a weakness to other attackers? A. APTs, B. Cyber middlemen, C. Brokers, D. Cyber terrorists. Answer: C. Brokers. Explanation: brokers are individuals who uncover weaknesses and do not report it to the software vendor, but instead sell them to the highest bidder, who are willing to pay a high price for the unknown weakness. 2. Which of the following is a high-level description of a threat actor's behavior? A. PTTs, B. Procedures, C. Tactics, D. Techniques. Answer: C. Tactics. Explanation: a tactic is a high-level description of the actor's behavior in order to achieve their planned attack. It is the why the attack occurs. An example of a tactic is to gather personal information to sell to other actors. 3. What tool is used to classify threats comparing the knowledge of the threat actor to security personnel? A. Rumsfeld graph, B. Johari window, C. Fire chart, D. Motivation display. Answer: B. Johari window. Explanation: cybersecurity professionals have adopted the Johari window as one means of classifying cybersecurity threats, particularly known threats or unknown threats, or classifying threats comparing the knowledge of the threat actor to security personnel. 4. Which attack takes advantage of an authentication token that a website sends to a user's web browser? A. FRFSB, SSRFC, CSRFD, CSCS. Answer: C. CRF. Explanation: a cross-site request forgery, CSRF, takes advantage of an authentication token that a website sends to a user's web browser. If a user is currently authenticated on a website and is then tricked into loading another web page, the new page inherits the identity and privileges of the victim, who may then perform an undesired function on the attacker's behalf. In other words, in a CSRF attack, a request to a website is not from the authentic user, but is a forgery that involves crossing sites. 5. Which attack takes advantage of user input and display on a web server? A. CSCR, B. DOM, XRS, C. CSS, D. XSS. Answer: D. XSS. Explanation: threat actors can take advantage of this user input and display in a cross-site scripting XSS attack. The term cross-site scripting refers to an attack using scripting that originates on one site, the web server, to impact another site, the user's computer. XSS is essentially a client-side code injection attack using a web application. 6. Which type of attack occurs when a threat actor accesses a target device to make changes to it? A. XRC, B. RCC, C. D. CRC. Answer: B. ARC. Explanation: remote code execution, RCE, occurs when a threat actor accesses a target device to make changes to it. Because this is done through a network connection instead of physically, that is, the threat actor is not sitting at the device making changes, it is called remote execution. 7. Which of the following is not a means of how obfuscated links are crafted? A. Obfuscate with puny code. B. Use the HTML xhref attribute. C. Manipulate the @ symbol. D. Use alternative hostname formats. Answer: B. Use the HTML xhref attribute. Explanation: there are several techniques for hiding URLs in a web browser so that an unsuspecting user does not know where a URL will actually redirect them. One of the simplest techniques is to use the HTML attribute ahref. However, this is a simple technique and more advanced techniques are used today. 8. Which vulnerability manipulates code to point away from an approved file on the web server to the attacker's own file that has been uploaded to that server? A. RFI, B. LFI, C. XFI, D. FFI. Answer: B. LFI. Explanation: using a local file inclusion (LFI) vulnerability, the attacker first manipulates the PHP code to point away from an approved file on the web server to the attacker's own file that has been uploaded to that server. 9. Which overflow attack manipulates the area of memory in which local variables are stored that a program uses? A. Data overflow. B. Integer overflow. C. Heap overflow. D. Stack overflow. Answer: D. Stack overflow. Explanation: a stack overflow manipulates RAM that stores local variables. If you find this video useful, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you are unable to do that, you will need to log in. Creating a YouTube account is free and takes less than a minute. To see more videos like this, please click in the rectangle in the middle of your screen. To see other videos from this channel, please click the circle on the bottom right.